All right, YouTube. Canadian goofball Justin Trudeau doesn't want to share his hash stash with any of his private citizens and hasn't really made any moves towards legalizing dude weed. And so naturally, dispensaries are being set up anyway because there's fucking sick people and bored people in Canada. I'd be bored too if it was like snow on the ground 8 months out of the year. So I don't blame them for getting high all the time. I don't blame them for having like chronic depression with the lack of sunlight up, around the Arctic Circle. So naturally, these dispensaries are just sort of ignoring the law and saying, fuck it. They keep raiding dispensaries even where it's been made legal up there. It's really funny to see how a lot of people don't appear to fully comprehend. Now, supposedly, Canada supposedly is further left, as in, at least on this issue, comprehends reality more than the United States, on drugs, at least. And fiscal issues, higher taxes and so forth. More multicultural. Look at Justin Trudeau's cabinet. Supposedly understands the issue of like medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, not fucking throwing someone in jail because they chose to use a mind altering substance. Supposedly. And yet, a large proportion of the population and an enormous majority of their politicians still cling to this sort of weird mythology that marijuana is the devil's weed and causes people to go out and become axe murderers, to the point where they still have like riot police storming these dispensaries declaring them enemies of the state and stuff. It was funny because Trudeau was largely elected on the dude weed platform. Essentially that he would give you the stash bag and you could have a little bit of that redistributed state pot or something like that. Instead, he's talked about that apparently before being elected. Oh yeah, we shouldn't be cracking down on this. People should get their medical pot or whatever. And everyone should be able to get it. You're bored. Here's a prescription for 40 grams of the finest Kush, and thereafter, almost immediately he said, oh yeah, it's not a major priority. Wait till like 2017 or something so people can keep getting thrown in jail. This is something that's sort of a near and dear issue because lives are destroyed by the drug war here in the United States. My state has decriminalized it. We haven't seen an increase in use, and we decriminalized it years ago, by the way. We shelved, by the way, legalization because they tried to do the same bullcrap they tried in Ohio. When legal weed was defeated there, the media tried to spin the story as, oh, Ohio doesn't want pot in their state because it's like evil and the devil's weed. Now, why they defeated it is because a lot of the pro-pot activists there decided not to vote in favor, specifically because of the class of legalization taking place. They wanted to have a state monopoly through a few corporate entities that would be growing the weed and then selling it at a fixed price to the population. What people actually wanted is they simply wanted what we, in a de facto sense, we have simply decriminalization. Simple possession won't result in jail time. It results maybe in a fine or confiscation. Most often, if you have a joint and you're walking down the street and the cop smells something funny, you pull out your pockets, son, you pull out the joint. They'll just grab the joint and fucking waste it on the ground and piss all over it and send you on your way with like a $50 fine maybe. They're not going to bring you in and book you. They're not going to be draconian with you, generally speaking, because it just doesn't make sense. It's not a major issue. If you're smoking a fucking toothpick, nobody gives a fuck. Unless you're driving, then it's DUI. In Canada, they appear to be behind the state of Vermont as a total when it comes to this issue. It's rather funny. You have a state like Alaska voting for legalization. Alaska's a deep red state. And they said, no, we're bored up here in the fucking tundra. We want to at least be able to smoke pot. And we're going to do that. It's just, it's stupid all around. Come on. The drug war, from a constitutional perspective, it doesn't need to continue because Uncle Sam has no right to enforce such a thing. I believe that Canada has at least a checkered history of human rights and should probably recognize the same. Number two, it's not economically feasible. We wasted enough time and money. Number three, it doesn't do anything. Pragmatically speaking, even if we could absorb the cost comfortably and there wasn't a constitutional issue, it just doesn't work. Doesn't prevent anybody from smoking pot. It doesn't prevent anybody from smoking crack. In fact, it makes a lot more addicts because people are devoting their police resources to stupid stuff like going after some pothead. Trudeau just doesn't want to share the weed. He's obviously high off of his ass all the time. The things that he says and does are so absolutely, utterly moronic. I can't believe that he hasn't already been removed by force by the Canadian military for treason against the state. He's just a total washout already. And yet people largely approve him. I think they're just comparing him to the last president or prime minister or whatever retard runs Canada. And they said, well, at least he's a little bit more sensible than that dude. That's not saying much. Wasn't the last one some absolute utter retard who was half incoherent most of the time? So Trudeau just doesn't want to share that weed. He can't have weed dispensaries because he's smoking all the weed in Canada. Quite clearly he is. And his wife too. His wife is now ranting about needing at least one more aide to help her do her thing. She doesn't have any official roles within the state of Canada. She's already got an aide and she can't make do. Just a fucking whining bitch, just like Trudeau is. And then you have Trudeau doing the typical. It's funny. The people who think Putin's compensating by taking shirtless pictures and riding bears and all that stupid shit that Putin does, suddenly they fawn over Trudeau for planking or boxing and getting knocked the fuck out with one hit while doing so. It's rather funny. They don't even recognize that as the same exact form of propaganda. Sort of our dear little baby-faced Trudeau, he has muscles and he's young and kind of has hobbit hair and chubby cheeks and stuff. Isn't he so adorable and kind of a strong dude? And he's so coherent, and he explained physics to climate deniers or whatever. And it's just a bunch of fucking bullcrap all over the place. The fact that he has a little more youth appeal because he doesn't use the retard title conservative to describe himself means nothing. He's not even really a liberal in the sense that liberality should be understood. I haven't seen him do anything that is. All he is a fucking retard multi-culti progressive that loaded his cabinet with unqualified individuals on the racial and ethnic basis and a gender basis. Here's the gay dude, here's the token Sikh, and it should look like Canada, so here's 50% females. Who gives a shit if they're qualified? It'll get me more votes when I'm up for re-election, I suppose. Meanwhile, he's managing to disenfranchise all those cancer patients that still can't go to the dispensary because it's still illegal. I'd think that'd be a more pressing issue, but I guess I'm completely wrong. I don't know anything because I'm not glorious Führer Justin Trudeau with the baby face and the hobbit hair. Now, Trudeau's just a retard. He's just smoking all the weed in Canada, and he doesn't fucking want to share. He's like that one pot buddy that hogs the pipe, takes 3 or 4 hits, and says, oh man, we need another bowl, man, and then you have to fill the bowl again, and then they just grab it back and smoke more. So you get a couple huffs, and then they've smoked their way through 3 or 4 bowls, and they're totally out of it, and then they just won't shut up. That's like what Justin Trudeau is, at least as far as I can see it. He's the annoying grabby stoner that keeps stealing the pipe over and over again. He just doesn't want his stash bag, which he considers to be all weed in Canada, to be shared amongst the native population. He doesn't want to give little old ladies with cancer, like AIDS patients, or people with chronic depression because his nation is so dark and cold. He doesn't want to give them any relief. He needs more of it for himself because he's terrified. He keeps pissing his pants and shitting them when he thinks about Putin being stronger than he is. So before he goes off and meets with Putin, he needs to smoke 10 pounds of weed out of his 50-foot water pipe that he had built at taxpayer expense. That's essentially Justin Trudeau, at least as far as I'm concerned. He's just a fucking puppet, just a retard. That's about all. Peace out.